Hey, family, Ivan Roman here. I'm your host. I'm excited about this broadcast with Banning Liebscher, the founder of Jesus Culture Ministries and Jesus Culture Worship, and just an overall incredible leader. And so, do me a favor, just take a moment here. And as you're logging on, I just want to say hello. I want to invite you to share the broadcast. And normally we do our videos from 12 to 1, but we had to push it back a little bit today. So do me a favor and just share the broadcast. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. The Lord began to speak to me about the season that we're in. And I'm a preacher and I love the art of preaching. And but the Lord began to speak to me and said, my people are hungry for conversations. People want to hear, like, what is in the heart of leaders. And I think right now, Banning Liebscher is a voice. I don't think I know. Banning Liebscher is a voice that we need to listen to. And he is navigating a very large church, a very large ministry, a movement in Southern California. And he's navigating it through this whole COVID-19 season. And I want to hear from him. I want to hear from him just kind of where the church is going in the season. What is God doing in the midst of this? But I also really want to dive in a little bit and talk about his book, The 3 Mile Journey. And I'm presently reading that book, and it is powerful. I feel like it's a word of the Lord for us right now. It's interesting the season that we're in, and I wouldn't compare it to the persecution of the first century church. No one's getting crucified upside down, but there is persecution. There is a measure of things that are happening where it's no longer just about a virus. There is some of our rights and things that are being challenged, and I want Banning to speak into that as a leader in the body of Christ. But do me a favor, welcome Robert and Sandra. Hello from Melbourne, from Missouri. Hello, Tamara. Good to see you on here. Dante from Illinois. Hey, guys, welcome. Wendy. Guys, do me a favor all the way from Canada here. Do me a favor as you guys are logging onto the broadcast. We want to share the broadcast, okay? We want this broadcast to go viral. We want to make Jesus famous this afternoon. We know he's famous, but you know that as we continue to share, it keeps going into people's broadcasts, and we want to talk to you, just have a conversation. You know, for me personally, as much as I love the art of preaching, some of my favorite sessions at conferences are when leaders just kind of sit down and they do a Q&A, and you can ask any question and they just share from their heart. Some of the most impacting times for me that I've been mentored in have been times where I'm in a green room or I'm sitting on a porch or sitting in somebody's house, and I get to hear a conversation between two leaders in the body of Christ. And so I'm super excited. And so for those of you that don't know Banning Liebscher, um, I don't know where you've been. I just want to share something very, very quickly before we bring Banning up here. This is Banning's new resource called the 3 Mile Walk. I said the 3 Mile Journey, but it's the 3 Mile Walk. And this is a powerful resource. I wish I could say I finished the book. We got to be honest, I'm on chapter 3. I'm listening to it. It is my morning gym book that I'm listening to that's getting me pumped up. And Banning starts the book talking about our personal responsibility as believers, and it is straight fire. And so I'm excited to hear. And so for those of you that are watching online, do me a favor and just say me if you've ever heard Banning Liebscher speak before, if you've ever heard of Jesus Culture Music before. And so we're going to dive into this powerful conversation where we talk about what is this 3 Mile Walk or 3 Mile Walk? Yeah, I keep wanting to say journey, 3 Mile Walk that we're all on, as well as a believer, what is our responsibility in this season? And there's a lot of frustration. I feel a lot of frustration in people's hearts, a lot of questions, a lot of confusion. But in the midst of it, God is moving, God is speaking. There's incredible things happening, and we want to talk about that. So I'm seeing quite a few of you say me, me, me. Yeah, Banning is awesome. I first met Banning back in, I believe it's 2000, and when I was a student at Bethel. But before that, I had a little youth ministry called Joel's Army. And Banning was one of my role models for that ministry. And we really tried to model our ministry after what Banning was doing, except for his became a global movement. And and I ended up transitioning and handing it off to somebody else. And so it's fun to see what God's done with Banning. So guys, here's what we're going to do. It's about 5 minutes in. I just want to keep encouraging you to join and log and share the broadcast. Keep sharing the broadcast. It really helps with these new Facebook algorithms that we are having to navigate. Some interesting things that are happening right now. with Facebook and their algorithms, but it's okay. It's good. So with no further ado, I want to bring Banning Liebscher on, and let's get ready here, ladies and gentlemen. My friend Banning Liebscher. Hey, Banning.
What's going on, Ivan?
Man, so good to see you.
It's been 20 years.
20, probably, yeah, 20 years. You
I
look the
remember,
same, but look, I got gray in my beard.
I remember us working together in the backyard at my house, and I remember Joel's Army. Joel's
do,
Army.
do you
It's
remember that?
wait, of course, yes, I absolutely do remember Joel's Army. Man,
Did you
so
ever pay
full
me
of,
for moving those bricks in your backyard? I don't think you did. I think you still owe me that, like
I
20
probably
bucks.
think about the interest that's accrued now. Think about the interest that's accrued on that work in my backyard. It's amazing.
Oh, Manny. So for people that are logging on, would you just introduce yourself? For it's funny to me, Banning, having known you for so long, and known of you and about you. It's like people know, like it's like people introduce Bill now as like Bethel, the pastor from Bethel Worship. And I'm like, the
Yeah.
pastor from Bethel Worship.
So,
And so now I hear people say, like, have you heard of Kim Walker or Chris Kilala?
yeah,
Well,
it's
then
my
Banning's
claim to
their
fame.
pastor.
I'm their pastor. It's absolutely my claim to fame, and I'm okay with that. Well, yeah, Banning Liebscher. Well, first been married for 22 years, and have 3 kids: 21-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old boy this summer. I pastor a church called Jesus Culture, and just outside Sacramento, and then have been. I guess we planted. It'll be 6 years next month. Before that, I was on staff at Bethel in Redding, where the pastor of Bethel Music is, Bill. And I was on staff there for 18 years. And 12 of those years, I was the youth pastor. I was in full-time youth ministry, and then we just did Jesus Culture and a variety of other stuff. So yeah, Kim and Chris, they mentioned I'm their pastor, but it's funny because you mentioned 20 years, but Chris, who's 37, 36,
Wow.
37, he was 12
Oh my goodness.
when I first started youth ministry. Chris was in middle school. He was in my wedding when he was 14. And
Wow.
then Kim, who is similar age, she was just turned 18, got involved in our youth group, and they're all here with us still. So it's
That's
kind of fun going down, looking back and going, man, it's been a long time. It's been a long
been
time.
a
I've
long
known Chris
time.
for 24 years or something like that. He was just a kid. So it's fun. So yeah, anyways, I'm pastor. That's what I do right now. Pastor in church, trying to figure out what all that looks like in the midst of a global pandemic and revival. So
Yeah.
that's what we do.
What's interesting to me, Banning, is I always kind of look to you for your leadership. You're a brilliant communicator. I know that's like something that you've really sharpened your craft in speaking, but I've always kind of like really like, okay, what's Banning doing as a leader? It seems to me like you've invested a lot of your study and learning and leadership.
Yeah.
And I remember as a youth pastor, I'll never forget this, conversation where I wanted to build this youth movement. There's all this intensity and passion, and I asked like a really dumb question. I was like, well, people just want to hang out and have coffee, and I want to see revival come. And you just started laughing. You're like, Ivan, calm down, And I'm still struggling with that here, and I'm 40, and I'm still just as passionate, as intense for revival. But so from that perspective of as somebody who's trained in leadership for so long, obviously God's entrusted you with that anointing. For those of us that are watching online as a senior leader, how do we navigate this season with, you got the left's perspective, the right's perspective, the middle's perspective, like there's like Kanye's the little horn and Oprah's the big horn and Obama's the antichrist, like it's like when you're listening, you're going, what in the world?
Bono's somewhere in there as well. I've heard Bono's the worship pastor or something.
So speak some clarity here.
Well, let me just address, it's funny that we talk about just sitting around having coffee as if that's a bad thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As if connecting with people and community is horrible.
Right.
So much, man. I tell you what, this is obviously, I'm a deep believer in the local church, as you are. Deep believer in community, and a deep believer in revival. And those two things are very linked to me, as far as I believe that the local church is the vehicle through which revival flows. So, it's definitely an intriguing time right now. I think that this whole season has exposed I think there's a lot of positives in this season. So this is all positive for me. But I think this season's exposed some real areas of immaturity. I think this season's exposed areas that we're not actually kingdom people. We're actually more connected to the systems of the world than the systems of God, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's good whenever we get some things revealed to us. Like, I think God's saying, like, hey, I need to show you some stuff. I need to show you some areas of immaturity that need to mature. I need to show you where your heart's anchored, actually not to the kingdom, but to other systems. And so I think as a pastor right now, who is passionate about revival, who's passionate about seeing people grow and be healthy and fulfill the call of God in their life and all that stuff, I do think that this has been a season of God revealing some things to us. I don't think COVID's from the Lord. I don't think the virus is from the Lord. But I think what I would have a theology around is God didn't send the storm that the disciples found themselves in, but Jesus took a moment to teach in the midst of it. It was very interesting because the storm actually revealed some things. It revealed a lack of faith. It revealed fear. It revealed what they were looking towards. And so Jesus, before he rebuked the storm, stopped and said, hey, let me take a moment and just kind of tell you what this storm is revealing in your life. Even though I didn't send the storm, I'd like to teach you in a moment in this thing. And I do feel that that's kind of what's happening. We are praying against this storm. We are praying that that no more destruction, no more loss of life, no more economy would be ruined, all that type of stuff. And yet I also am like, man, I can really see you calling the church to a deeper level, people to a deeper maturity. I can really see you exposing some things that need to be exposed and revealing things in our heart that need to be revealed. So we're just trying to take in that moment. I do not believe, I've talked a lot about 2020, that I used this analogy the other day. Have you ever been to a movie that you were really excited to go see? Like really excited to go see the movie. And then you went to the movie and sat there for 2 hours and thought, this movie sucks. Like, what a waste. What a waste. Like, all the previews were wrong. This movie's dumb. And then you walk out of the theater and go, I'll never get those 2 hours back. What a waste of a movie. This was Joe versus the volcano for me. Anybody in there? This was my freshman year, 1990. It's Tom Hanks, and Meg Ryan. This is the powerhouse of the 90s in the movies. So excited that I get there. I'm like, I never get that. That movie was dumb. And I feel like people are looking at 2020 like that. Like, and listen, if you're in the prophetic, which I'm assuming everybody that's watching right now has, a value for the prophetic, but it was like 2020 vision, 2020 clarity, 2020, it was just so much prophetic swirl. And we're like, dude, I'm stoked about 2020. This can be incredible. And then all of a sudden, pandemic hits and we're now 5-6 months into it going, this movie sucks. Like, how do I'm never going to, and I think they want to come out of 2020 and go, I wish I could just forget about 2020. And I'm going, no, hold on. God doesn't waste seasons. God redeems seasons. God is at work in every season. So what is it that God's doing right now? Because this season is not wasted. Those prophetic words are not lost. He's going to do something in America. He's going to do something in the world. He's going, so trying to get people to lock in. I'm not just trying to go like, hey, can we move on from whatever this season is? And again, I'm praying against COVID, but I'm saying this kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's my heart as a pastor, I guess. There's a lot to unpack there.
That's so good. I know for me, when this whole COVID thing happened, I felt like the Lord gave me a few warnings that something was coming, but he didn't tell me what. And so I saw this little sailboat and I saw the storm, and God said, when you see the storm coming, tell my people to keep moving forward. And I kept having these words about move forward. So when this happened, we had already transitioned to online. And so we made the transition very smooth as a church by the grace of God. And we were doing really well. Banning, and this is coming from my heart as a senior leader of a church, when we opened up into the building, it doesn't feel the way it used to, Banning. When we used to gather, we have a smaller community of like 150 people. But man, when it's 150 people in this sanctuary, I'm looking at people with affirmation in their eye. I love that guy, man. I look at that baby over there getting so big. And, your heart's full and worship is awesome. And now it's like people have masks and it's kind of awkward and people aren't showing. And it doesn't feel the same. And so for those of us that are, just maybe speak into some of like, what does church look like now if you can't gather in a building? It seems to me
Yeah.
like in some ways, church is having to be redefined.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned at the beginning how people want to hear conversations, and I think one of the reasons why conversations are so helpful is because it lets people in on the process that we're thinking, not just it's the heart, but also like, how are you processing this stuff? How are you making decisions? What does this look like? So, as a senior pastor, as you are, um, yeah, this is what we're processing right now, right? And there's a lot of pressure from both angles, as far as you're trying to navigate submitting to authorities, and you're trying to navigate what's God asking, and you're trying to navigate the people that think, this is all a conspiracy and just government made. And then you're trying to navigate the people that are encountering it differently, have a family member that died from COVID or whatever else. There's just so much that you're navigating as a pastor. And I do think I think it's going to bring some real clarity to the church on what really matters. I think I hate general statements. If I can just say this right now, I'm going to make a few general statements, but I hate them because the body of Christ is so big, so diverse. You can't speak about every church in one statement, even in America. It just doesn't. But I think a lot of the American church has so relied on programs and phenomenal, meetings and all this type of stuff. And I think we're finding like, what really matters in this moment. And I've been preaching for a long time. I've been saying this: if your programs are gone, do you still like, for example, we have a deep passion for community. Let's say your pastor decided to get rid of small groups. Would you, if the program small group, if the small group programs were gone, would you still move towards people in community? So right now, if you've stopped doing the things that you were doing before as a believer, I'm not just talking about gathering on Sunday mornings, but I'm talking about moving towards community, taking care of the poor, praying for one another, reaching out, getting in your word, worshiping. If you've stopped that simply because a meeting stopped on Sunday morning, then maybe it's time to stop and go, wait a second. Like, is this thing just happening around me, or is it happening in me? I just challenged our church around this issue. I think this is one of the things you were about. You were at BSSM, the School of Ministry in Reading. A lot of what gets confusing for students is they're on fire and then they leave and they're not on fire because they had a false gauge that because the fire was happening around them, then it must have been happening in them. Then they leave and they find out, oh, that wasn't happening in me. So I want to just challenge people right now, like, hey, right now you can't gather corporately. But the problem is a lot of people worship corporately on Sunday, but they don't worship privately on Monday. And because it's happening around them, it's not happening in them. So I'm like, Lord, let's take this season to not just have worship happening around me, but let it happen in me. Yes. So that I'm coming back when we do gather again, and we will gather again. We will gather again. It's a lot longer than we thought. It's taking a lot longer. It's being dragged on. We will gather again. But the point is that I want to come back with, dude, I encountered God yesterday in worship. Yes. And now I'm bringing that internal reality and I'm joining it with my family corporately as we worship. And so you can say I miss corporate worship, but you shouldn't be saying I miss worship. Right. And if I'm missing worship, it's because it was happening around me and not in me. So anyways, we can actually unpack a little bit about should we meet, should we not meet, all that type of stuff. I mean, I don't mind unpacking all that, but I think that there's this type of stuff that we're all trying to navigate. And then there's pressure like, well, I guess we meet. Should we meet again? I guess we meet again. Like, I guess we should meet again, right? And the governor said it was okay to meet. Like, let's meet. And we're just trying to do the best we can.
So Banning, there's a few words. Again, we're having a conversation on the porch, so I want you to tune me up, and I want you to tune up the community. So in your book, The 3 Mile Journey, the way that you started it was like, be still my beating heart. Like, as a church planner, I want to serve. Why do you think we planted a church for? I want to serve people. And so I'm this young 32-year-old church planner, and I'm going to serve people. And then they come, and it's like 30 people in a building. They're not sure about me. Some people love Bethel. Some people think it's a cult, and I'm planning in a region that's like divided in the middle.
There's nothing in between either. I love Beth Lord. I think it's a cult. There's no in
Yes.
between.
And
So
so
keep on.
I'm planning a church, and so people are looking at me, and then there's all my like Todd Bentley Day stuff, and then there's now that. And so people are just waiting for me to like say I'm the, the Antichrist or something. So there's all this weirdness going on around our culture. And then I'm like going after the supernatural and I'm empowering women. Oh my gosh, like what's wrong with this guy? So then every Sunday people are coming over to me and they're like, does this church have a new beginner class? And then, Benning, I didn't have your wisdom, right? So I would go, we don't, but we should. So then I would go home and I would just pray and be like, honey, we need a new beginner class. And I'd pace and I'd meet with all these leaders and nobody wanted to do it. And then I'm frustrated with them because they're not serving and they're frustrated at me because I'm pushing them. Banning, the first few years, I tried to meet the needs of every single person. And it left me feeling so, can I just be honest? What am I doing? I'm worthless. Like, what am I a church planner for, right? And so there's two words that we use a lot in church: community and family. You got a visitor behind you.
No, I got my daughter walking down to me. She's taking her dog. Hey, I'm on a live Facebook thing.
There's only a couple thousand that are watching. No, I'm just kidding.
We're on the porch. You taking him? Yes. Her dog's been hanging. My 21-year-old, her dog hangs out with me when she's not here, so she has to come in and get her dog. Keep going. Yes.
So there's two words that I believe in with all of my heart from a kingdom perspective. The kingdom is family, and church is family, and community is vital.
Yeah.
But there's a definition of family and community in a local church concept. So during this COVID season, I'm losing my hair. I've been praying in the spirit and I've been stressing, I've been worshiping, and I'm just being honest with the journey, trying to navigate the season. And what am I hearing? We need more connection. And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate. So would you just speak into, because in your book you talk about this.
Yeah. You ready to go after this one? Let me go after this one real quick. And I'm going after this as I'm a pastor, and I love people. I love people. But we at some level we've set up a structure in the church many times where people are coming to the church and they're looking for the church to do their Christianity for them.
Wow.
So simply put, if you're a follower of Jesus, there are certain things that he asks of you. He says, hey, as a follower, pray, take care of the widow and the poor, take care of the widow and the orphan, the poor, pray for the sick, be generous with your finances. There's just a disciple people, share your faith. So those are things we do as followers of Jesus. But many times we come to the church and we're expecting the leadership and the church organization to do our Christian life for us. And we don't realize we're doing that. We just are kind of like, so what happens is, in a setting like this is what it is. Hey, pastor, we need community. And what they're saying in essence is I need you to build a structure for me to find community. And we miss what Ephesians 4 is really about. When Ephesians 4 is talking about the fivefold ministry, it's about, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher, pastor. This fivefold ministry, the purpose of it is to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, is to edify, encourage, and then to help people mature so that they're no longer children, but that they look like Jesus, which is called sanctification. So that process, though, people aren't looking to be equipped for their Christian life. They're looking for somebody to build something for their Christian life. Right. And what they don't realize is the illustration that I would use is, it's a long story, I won't tell it all, but we had a puppy about a year old chewing everything, like just wouldn't walk on a leash, ran away, and it was getting crazy. So I finally said, I got to go get it trained. So I paid $180 to Petco to go to this group class for 10 classes or whatever. Well, I show up to the class with my dog who's choking himself the whole time walking on a leash. And when the lady came in and she began to teach the class, she was talking to me the entire time. Right. And I was honestly confused about it. I was like, why are you talking to me? Like, train my dog. I paid you money to train my dog. So I thought, well, maybe it's the intro class. I come back the next week and she's still talking to me. And I realized, oh, I'm paying you money to teach me what to do with my dog. That's not why I'm here. I'm not here for you to teach me what to do with my dog. Yeah. I'm here for you to train my dog. I need you to get my dog to walk on a leash. I need you to get my dog to stop chewing things. I need you to get my dog to stop digging in the backyard. And so this is sometimes how believers approach the church. Like Jesus says, feed the, take care of the poor, take care of the orphan and widow, disciple people, get in community, all this type of stuff. And then we come to the church and we're like, all right, so what are you doing to take care of my responsibility?
Yep.
So what is it that you've built to take care of my responsibility?
Wow.
So it's not the pastor's job to get you in community. I don't know. Like, I'm not being harsh, everybody. I just need you to know, like, it's not the pastor's job to get you in community. It's your job to get you in community. It's the pastor's job to make sure that you're equipped, that you're encouraged, and that you're maturing so that you can engage in healthy community.
So good.
So it's not the pastor's, and this is the discipleship. This is what we would say. Somebody comes and says, hey, my neighbor got saved. Where's the new believers class? It's in your living room. Like, you know what the new believers class is? In your living room.
Right.
And guess who the leader is? You are. So It's not my job to build a new believers class to disciple your neighbor. It's my job to make sure you're equipped and mature so that you can be an effective discipler of your neighbor.
Sure.
And so, but that is a big shift. So so in the church right now, when there's no longer a Sunday morning gathering or something, you begin to get exposed of like, I just don't have any community. I just don't have any community. I just want to meet again so we can have community. And I would challenge the thing of like, well, why don't you have community?
Right.
Like, where's your community? Can you not reach out to people? Can you not connect with people? Like, is there something that but they're going like, Pastor, I just need connection, man. Why? Like, let's meet again so I can have connection. And I think, listen, and I'm not upset with anybody about this, but it is revealing, it's revealing immature areas in our life that we need to mature. We've got to get mature in our life if we're going to go where God's trying to take us. And so, so in other words, back in the day, everybody has all these needs they want you to meet. And you just got to go, oh, my job is to create a culture and an atmosphere for you to encounter God. And then my job is to and I want to facilitate community. Guys, I'm not against small group structure. Yeah, right. I'm not against all this type of stuff. But I am against the church structure doing your Christian life for you. The church structure. So if your church never did anything about the poor, the 501c3 organization, and I would say that I do have a grid, New Testament grid, for money being laid at the apostles' feet and them splitting it up. But if the church never did anything for the poor, would you still lean in and say, God, what are you calling me to do with the poor in my city?
So good.
If there was never a small group structure, would you still lean in and say, God, I'm supposed to be in community. I'm supposed to be having people in my life. I'm supposed to be discipling people. God, what does that look like for me to do that right now? And if we're sitting back waiting for the pastor to build something before I go do my Christian life, we don't realize that we're like the person walking in with the dog who's my responsibility and saying, listen, I paid you money. Why aren't you doing what I'm called to do? Wow. I'm called to train the dog, not you, but I'm looking for you to do what I'm called to do, if that makes sense.
Banning, so good. Guys, we're about 30 minutes into it, and about 30 minutes, we get a lot of new people that log on to the broadcast, and I just want to reintroduce Banning Liebscher. He's the senior pastor of Jesus Culture, and some of the things that we're discussing is actually in Banning's book, The 3 Mile Walk. I want to ask you guys to do me a huge favor. And Banning, where could they purchase this resource? Is it on a website? Is it on Amazon? Where would you?
Amazon. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody buys books on Amazon, right?
Yes.
The 3milewalkbook.com will have information if you're wanting to kind of just get more information. 3milewalkbook.com. But outside of that, Amazon, right?
You shared something in the. I'm sorry. Yeah, Amazon. You shared something in the 3 Mile Walk that was so significant, and so I'm going to kind of personalize it, and then I'm going to kind of expand the question. So when we planted the church, I'm the pastor. And so then I started to pursue a doctorate through this particular online organization. And I got my pastoral studies. Banning, every book was about psychology, was about therapy. And ultimately, every book was like how to psychoanalyze people. And I thought to myself, number one, in the state of Oregon, it's illegal for me to practice counseling without a license. I could do biblical counsel, but I can't practice, therapy and counseling. And so I realized that that word pastor, in a traditional sense, means you are my therapist, you are my counselor. So my passion is to raise up powerful people. And so I noticed, so we shifted the language just because the culture was, pulling on me for Sprite when I'm Coke. And I'm like, guys, I want to have coffee and impart and coach. But it was like, but I'm not sitting here with a clipboard like Dr. Phil. But I noticed you use, and ever since
Great
I've
word.
known you, you're totally okay with the term pastor. And you have a church of over 1,000 people. How have you defined or redefined in your culture? Because, okay, so I'm in a church of 150 where the definition of community is Ivan didn't show up to my birthday party. And they're so mad at me, because I didn't go to the birthday party. And I can't always go to everybody's birthday party, even if my heart wants to. So now for you in a church of 1,000 people, a pastor of a community, what are their expectations? Are you still getting hit up on Instagram and inbox saying, hey, let's grab a
No.
Java on me? So help us to
No.
understand a little bit of the kingdom.
Yeah, so I would again say this. If you look at Ephesians 4 says that apostle, prophet, pastor, evangelist, teacher, they all have the same mandate. They're all called to equip, they're all called to encourage, and then they're all called to help mature people to look like Jesus. So if I could set aside pastor for a moment, evangelist. It's not actually the job of evangelist to evangelize. So I don't know if people know this, but if you're in the fivefold ministry of evangelism, it's not actually your job to evangelize people. You have a call to evangelize because you're a Christian.
Come on.
Because you're a Christian. The role of an evangelist is to help raise the water level and equip people to evangelize.
So good.
So sometimes when we say, well, we have an evangelist, my daughter's asking me if I'm still on. Sometimes we're like, we have an evangelist coming in, so bring all of your friends who aren't saved so they can hear from the evangelist. But biblically, the evangelist has the same job as it's to equip. Yes. So when an evangelist comes in, it should raise the water level in all of our lives to be better at evangelism, because that's the mandate on every believer. Same thing with pastoring. So if you're a pastor, it doesn't mean that your job is to pastor everybody. It means that you're to create an environment and that you're to equip people who are actually, you raise the pastoral water level, community and connection and discipleship and care and love and all that type of stuff. So if people are like, well, you have a title of pastor, which means you need to pastor me, they're missing what Ephesians 4 is actually talking about. Is that, no, the fivefold role of a pastor isn't to pastor people, it's to equip the body of Christ in pastoring. It's all of our jobs to pastor people.
So good.
It's all of our jobs. It's all of our jobs to pastor people. It's all of our jobs to evangelize. It's all of our jobs to teach. And then if you are in a fivefold office, then your job is to help equip and raise the water level in that area. And so it's just a wrong understanding. And I get it. I mean, people have a different view of church, and the word pastor isn't even really about your fivefold ministry. It's more just a title of respect. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's more like Mr. Liebscher, Pastor Bain. It's more title of respect than it is the define. And I'm fine with that. It's a cultural issue, not a biblical issue.
Right.
I'm fine with people calling me pastor. But I think that we just have to understand, well, my pastor's not here to pastor me. My pastor's here to raise the water level, to create an environment and a culture where healthy pastoral ministry is engaged. Same thing with apostolic, same thing with prophetic, same thing with teaching, same thing with evangelism. We have a healthy teaching culture. We have a healthy prophetic culture. We have a healthy apostolic culture. That's what those things are about. And there's a ton of pastoral. There are a ton of pastors. Like, we should all be pastoring, though. At the end of the day, everyone should be pastoring. Dude, like, you are pastoring people. The issue is the capacity of, is this all I'm doing? But of course, there are people in your life that you're encouraging and walking with and loving on. And quite frankly, if you think of it as a family, there's only a handful you can do that with anyways. And I'm sharing this a ton. When Paul writes that you have many teachers, but not many fathers, do you know that's not a negative context? People have preached that from a negative context. There's a ton of teachers, but not enough fathers. And I'm
Right.
like, that's not what that passage is talking about. Paul is saying, listen, you've got a ton of teachers because you can relate to a bunch of teachers, but you only have a handful of fathers, and I'm one of them. Paul was
Right.
saying, like, you only have a handful of fathers. So I'm talking to you not as just one of those not one of those teachers.
So
I'm
good,
talking
man.
to you as a father who you only have a few of. And you know why you only have a few fathers? You know why you only have a few sons and daughters? Because you just don't have the capacity to have more. So I can teach thousands. I can only father a handful. So like, you can teach thousands, you can only pastor a few.
Right.
So that's why it's like, well, we all want them to be, it's only practice. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense what I'm
100%.
saying
No,
to everybody.
I mean,
But
I was
that's
trained
why
up by you guys.
I don't feel that pressure, and I don't have to call myself something else. I can be called the pastor. I'm fine, because even as the pastor, my job isn't to pastor everybody in our church. My job is to create an environment and a culture that's equipping, that's healthy, that's growing people in their maturity in all of those areas.
So good. Let's just connect this to a story that's in your book that I found so profound. And yet I found, like, as a dad, right? I have three boys. My oldest, I can't believe that your oldest is what, 21? Because I remember we both knew you 20 years ago. So it would have been
Yeah,
just a baby. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
you're getting old. I'm not,
Yeah,
but,
it's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, it's the truth. Yeah,
you have a story there about, if you can share it, because I'm going to ruin it. It's of the caterpillar, what happens,
yeah.
because I'm
Well,
thinking of my kids, and part of me wants to, like, protect them. Like, one of my little guys had a situation with, he felt bullied, and I, and then the dad in me is like, well, we got to protect them and call the parents.
yep,
And then you're like,
yep,
no, he's going to go back again, and
yeah,
he's going to face this and as an opportunity for growth.
yeah,
So as you're talking about equipping the saints, to me, this is connected
yeah.
instead of a
Well,
culture of enablement. Yeah.
so let me unpack something real quick around consumerism. Now, I'm just going to start by saying this right now. I love consumerism. I love it. I love that there are people out there that are trying to figure out how to make my life easier.
Right.
I love that somebody invented AirPods that don't have to have a wire connected, because, man, that
Totally.
wire is a hassle. And somebody came up with Bluetooth, and somebody figured out this. And I love that somebody said, hey, maybe they don't want to walk to the grocery store. Let's let them order online and we'll bring it out to them. Like, I love consumerism. It's making my life easier. The problem is that consumerism in the church is a problem. Consumerism in society, great. Consumerism in the church is a problem. And here's why. Consumerism is built around removing the struggle. And I want to remove the struggle because I want you to come and spend money here. So I'm trying to make the experience at this business as easy as possible. So we have entire marketing campaigns built around making your experience easy and removing all struggle. Staples, there's an easy button. You come here, and all of the hassle of the other places, we removed them, made them as easy as possible. So what we're naturally kind of geared towards. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. We're live, but my dog is barking to get in.
No worries. We're on the porch. We're having a
We're on the
conversation
porch.
on the
Come on,
porch.
get in here. So the dog that wanted out now wants in. So so what happens is, this is how consumerism manifests. There's two coffee shops. They're a block away. They're competing for business. So one day the owner is looking, and a guy drives up, gets out of his car, walks in, orders, stands and waits, gets the coffee, goes back out to his car and drives away. So he's not going to stay. So the owner goes, I think I can eliminate some of the struggle if I put a drive-through in. So then he puts a drive-through in because he's trying to eliminate struggle so that the guy doesn't have to get in and wait. And now the guy can drive through. And he's doing that because he wants more people spending their money at his place. Right. So now people are driving through his location, not because it's better coffee, but because it's easier and he's removed struggle. So this is how we're naturally programmed. We're going to where the struggle is not. The problem is that when we build churches, we want to tell people, hey, listen, we've removed all struggle. We've
Wow.
made this as easy as possible. I can't tell you how easy it is. You had a hard time getting in community. I've made it as easy as possible. It's so turnkey. All you got to do is this, show up, and it's all done for you. And discipleship and giving and everything else. And the problem is that the Christian life involves struggle.
Wow.
Like we're trying to, and I'm trying to eliminate struggle so that you'll come to my church.
Right.
But the problem is growth happens in struggle. And so I tell our church, I'm like, guys, I know that a lot of you are having a hard time with community. It's a struggle. I don't know what to say. Finding community is a struggle. And listen, we are very intentional people. We communicate well. We've got structure. Like if you come to our church, it's not like the Wild West of chaos, right. but we do have an understanding that, yeah, you're struggling in community. Yeah, struggles community community is struggle sometimes. It takes some time to figure some things out and to find the right people, and it's offensive and it's messy and all that type of stuff. And here's the problem. A business is interested in your comfort. God is interested in your growth.
So good.
And these are two different things. God's not first and foremost interested in your comfort. He's interested in your growth. And growth happens through struggle. And I'm going to tell us, so what happens is this, and this is the story that, it's not my story, I took it from somebody, but a guy tells a story about an emperor moth. Yes, there's a story right there that Wendy just said. Guy tells a story about an emperor moth where it's in a cocoon, and he sees this moth really struggling to get out of the cocoon, and finally it looks like he just can't get out. So this guy, thinking he is helping this moth, puts a little slit in the cocoon. And when he does, the moth comes out easily. But when the moth comes out, he has little tiny shriveled wings and a bloated body. And so the guy thinks, well, this is going to change, but it doesn't change. And the moth never flies, because what he didn't realize is that God created the process where the struggle involved in getting out of that cocoon is actually what pushes the blood from the body into the wings. Wow. So that he can fly. And the ability to fly is connected to the struggle. Now, I would say this, that maturity is connected to the struggle. And when my goal as a pastor is to remove all struggle in your life, I am committing you to a life of immaturity. Wow. To a life of immaturity. So when I'm like, oh man, I don't ever want, man, I feel so bad that you're struggling with community. Let me see how easy I can make community. And it's all from a good heart. It's all from a good heart. I want to serve people. Like I want to serve people. I want to help them out. I hate to see people struggle. I hate to see my kids struggle. Yeah. I hate to see people I love struggle. I hate to see when people can't find community in our church and all that type of stuff. But I have to be careful that I'm not removing the very struggle that God is using to mature that person. Same thing in your own life with your boy. If you step in, he's maturing and growing. And although we hate the struggle he's in and we want to protect him and save him from the struggle, he's actually becoming a man, a mature man by struggling through this process. And so this is the issue when we create, and again, I need to say this, I love consumerism. I love that somebody out there is trying to figure out how to make my life easier. Right. But when the goal of the church is to remove all struggle, when the goal of the church is to make you as comfortable as possible, then what happens is we're removing the very things that are needed in order for you to mature. And my heart, and in Ephesians 4 says very clearly that it's to equip, to edify, but so that you'll become a mature man, so that you'll grow into the likeness of Jesus, and so that you'll no longer be a child. Wow. And so that's my heart. And Paul's language is so fatherly. So I don't care what you call yourself. You can call yourself an apostle, a prophet, a pastor, evangelist, a teacher. But ultimately, we're called to be fathers and mothers. Yes. So whatever role you find yourself in, you can call it pastor or apostle, whatever you want to call yourself, just make sure you're a father. Just make sure you're a mother. And if you're a father, then you're like, oh, I hate the struggle, but I also want to see you mature, because that's what I'm going after in your life.
So powerful. Guys, a lot of what Banning is sharing is taken directly from his book right here. I'm going to post it up here. I want you guys to do me a favor. 3milewalkbook.com. Do me a favor, all of you that are watching, those of you that are going to watch the replay. This is an important conversation to have. We're having a conversation on the porch where we're being open and honest as two senior leaders that have, you know, the word that God spoke to me, Banning, one time I was doing a foot washing for a Bible school graduation. And the Lord spoke to me, said, Ivan, I've called you to wash the feet of the body of Christ for the rest of your life. Like,
Yes.
I want to serve the church. And I just realized that some of the areas that you were speaking into, you're just a brilliant communicator. You have a better way of saying it. You're not offensive. And so I love what you're saying. But here's what I want to do, Benny. So about 46.
I'm so sorry. Real quick.
Go ahead,
I know we're going to
please.
wrap up. What you just said right there, what I find is people just need clarity.
Yes.
Because I don't know anybody who's like, no, I want to stay immature and I want you to make my life easy. When you can actually begin to say, no, this is why we're not removing struggle. This is why they're like, good. I don't want to be a consumer. I want to grow and mature. Okay, I have clarity now. So much of our job is to help give clarity around why we're doing it. I just want to say that. It's why if you're a pastor watching, you've got to make sure you can really get clarity on your communication, because I honestly have never met a believer when I talk about this who's like, nah, I'd rather stay immature and I'd rather you just, I'd rather stay immature and I'd rather just you work for my comfort and do my Christian life for me. Nobody wants, they just don't want that. They're like, oh, I don't want that. I didn't even know I was falling into that. And so it's not about me being hardcore or mean or harsh or whatever else. It's me caring about you. And so I apologize. I cut you off.
Don't apologize. I actually was going to say, you know, I want to honor your time and the people that are watching. And I just, you know, what's God putting on your heart, you know, just to speak to those that are watching, those that are, you know, I recognize a lot of the names. I do recognize some pastors. You know, I believe this is the Johnny Wash that I know. I think I've recognized, here's a pastor here as well. So there's a lot of people that are here as an evangelist, a lot over 500 souls to Jesus online. So there's a lot of mixed people that are watching this. And so just take the rest of the time and just kind of charge us and share what's on your heart.
Yeah, I just think that right now we have to very much, I think that we really need to get clarity. Well, let me back up. Can I just, there's so many things, either prophetically or pastorally. Let me talk pastorally real quick. One of the things I've been very surprised by is the lack of humility in the body of Christ. Wow. And maybe because it's all manifesting online and we've decided that there's not a human on the other side of my comment or something. But guys, we've got to humble ourselves. Like this whole thing, and I know that there's a lot of division right now around, like, whether it's First Amendment or whether it's, you know, this or whether it's that or whatever else it is. Whatever we do, we just need to be humble and kind in the process. I think that for many of us, it's a season to be slow to speak and quick to listen. We just need to be, we all have so many strong opinions. We have opinions about the protests and the riots, and we've got opinions about racism. We have opinions about Trump, and we've got opinions about this and that. And I just want to go like, dude, there are seasons that are just like slow to speak, quick to listen. Can we just be slow to speak and quick to listen? And I think that that's humility. And I'm seeing so much of this stuff. I'm like, dude, this is just so arrogant. It's just so much pride manifesting when, like, my job is not just to like get my opinion out there and do this type of stuff. So I would say this, I would just challenge the church that we've got to move towards one another, and we've got to get low. We've got to get low. And I think that's important right now. And I'm just seeing a lack of low in some areas. Am I allowed to say that right now?
You're right on.
There's just a lack of low sometimes. And then the other thing is just stuff I mentioned. It's just around this thing of, listen, he's moving in this season. He's moving in this season. And so we just need to lean into that thing. God, what is it that you're doing? I remember Bill Johnson. I remember Bill talking one time about when his dad passed away, who was his biggest encourager. And it was that we were there for it. It was a really rough time. When his dad passed away, he said, I can bring God a gift in this season that I can't bring him later. In the midst of this loss, I can bring him something in my worship that I can't. And it's been resonating with me right now.
That's so good.
That there are things in this season that I hope we don't miss. There are things in this season that you're not going to be able to get in another season. And I remember that when this thing first happened, we had a school leadership and it had to go online to end. And so we were online. We were just a few weeks into the shutdown. And I just said, hey, guys, what are you hearing from the Lord? And really good stuff. And then one of them said, one of these young girls, she goes, man, I just been in the book of Song of Solomon. And I was like, okay. Global pandemic, things shut down, and you're hanging out in Song of Solomon.
Let him kiss me with the kisses.
Yes, so it was one of those like, okay. But she said this. She said this verse 8:5. She said the verse that's resonated with me is when the verse where it says, "Who is this coming out of the wilderness, leaning on her beloved?"
Oh, that's the one.
Oh man, she said that, and it was like, God, this is what, like, God, I like the wilderness season reveals to us the things that we have been leaning on that are not Jesus.
So good.
In the midst of an uncertain economy, I find, am I leaning on the economy or am I leaning on Jesus? In the midst of uncertainty with my work, in the midst of, and as a pastor, my programs, my preaching, my charisma, my ability to lead a room, all this type of stuff. Well, that's gone. I'm leaning on my own strength. I'm leaning on my own effort. We all don't know what we're doing. We're all just like, should we meet? Not me. I don't know. Like we're just doing the best we can to somehow, and people's engagement is up and down. But I just said, God, I want to come out of this season with a deeper understanding that there were things that I was leaning on that were not you. Strip those away, and may I come out of this season leaning on you and you only. And so, but I'm telling you, is there another season that stuff is so globally stripped away from us, where we have, in the midst of uncertainty and all that, where it gets very revealed? Well, I think I was leaning on some stuff.
Yep.
And even Americans, they're just like, we'll just work harder. We'll work harder to get out of this. You can't work harder to get out of this right now. It's got to be Jesus. And so I would just say, don't miss the moment. There's a moment that we're in, and I'm praying for this storm. We are taking authority over the storm, but man, there's a moment as well that I don't want to miss.
So good. I had a dream very recently, and I'll just share briefly. Part of it was for me, and part of it I think was corporate. And I'm not even sure if this is 100% true, if this actually happened, but in the dream I was invited to speak somewhere, and I get on the mic and I say this. I say, Carol Wimber corrected the Vineyard movement and said, you worship to get God to do something. We worship simply because he was worthy. It is called worship, isn't it? And in this dream, I preach that throughout the night. So it gets dark and it wakes up. A man walks over to me, Banning, takes the mic from me and says, that was a terrible message. And in the dream, I said, then that's the word of the Lord to you. And that's the word of the Lord to me, is that in this dark season, God's saying, worship me, Ivan, just because I'm worthy, not to get me to move, not to get this to happen, not to get creative strategy. And so I felt adjusted in that season, but I actually feel corporately, we just got to worship because he's worthy.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about worship in this season? How do you see, you started off talking about corporate worship. I had a prayer meeting last night and I played much of Bethel and Jesus Culture Worship to help navigate us through. And so how would you just maybe tie this up really quickly?
Because there's a gift of worship that you can give him right now that, even in the awkward, even when you are meeting and it's awkward and it's masks, well, there's a gift of worship you can give him that you won't be able to get. It's not going to be masks and awkward forever. It's not going to be just you by yourself in your garage or your bedroom or your office forever. So I just think it's really revealing, this type of stuff of like, I want to give him a gift in worship that I can't give him outside of this season. So I'm going to really go after that. So it's just that. And then I think there's something powerful. Can I say this about prophetic, and then and then I think you're one to end this, but the NBA, if you watch the NBA at all, It's really interesting. The NBA shuts down. This is the prophetic picture that I think is for the church. The NBA shuts down. And when the NBA shut down, there were people that were overweight. There were people that weren't strong enough. There were people that were rehabbing ankle injuries. There were people that didn't have a 3-point shot. And it's really interesting now, 4 months later, the NBA comes back and some of the storylines are around, man, that guy put 20 pounds of muscle on it. That guy leaned down 20 pounds. That guy had an ankle injury and wasn't able to finish the season, but now his ankle's rehabbed and he's ready to go. That guy didn't have a 3-point shot. Man, he worked on his 3-point shot. So I think as you recognize, I think this is where power is going to be released. We've had to separate. We've had to do what Moses did, which was to go outside the camp. We've had to separate from the corporate gathering. But my prayer is that as we've separated from the corporate gathering, that God would heal us and deepen us and grow us and get us stronger individually, that our ankle would get healed, that we'd lose 20 pounds, that we'd gain 20 pounds of muscle, and that as we come back together corporately, that the work we've done individually would actually manifest in power being released as we begin to gather again corporately. And so I don't think this is a lost season. I don't think this is a wasted season. I think God's doing a deep work in the lives of people, and we are going to see it manifested when we come back together, and we will come back together.
Yes, it's so good. Banning, thank you so much for your time, man. I
Absolutely.
so appreciate it. Just really quickly here, you guys, before Banning logs off. Guys, I know a lot of you are already purchasing this book, The 3 Mile Walk. When I began to just listen to this book, I realized this is more than just like good theology, good teaching. This is a word of the Lord for the season in which we're in. And it's filled with truth. It's filled with grit. There's some stuff in there where you go, ooh, I felt that. Like, that felt like a little jab to my chest there. Like the Lord was bringing some alignment. So I appreciate books that'll bring us into a healthy alignment. We bless you, Banning. We thank you so much. Man, I haven't seen you in a long time. You look the same.
It's good to see you, my friend. Well, if you'd see, I got some thinning hair if I turn around, but outside of that, yeah.
That's why you got to. That's why you got to sit up. That's why I
totally.
do that.
I got to get the right angle on all this. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Love you, man.
Appreciate you having me on the porch.
We so appreciate you so much, and I'm hoping that you guys will share and reshare this broadcast because it's a lot of important meat here, Banning. You're definitely a voice that we need to be listening to. I'd love to have you back again to talk about revival, reformation, but it's time to take the dog out.
Yeah, I got kids coming in too. All right, thanks, my friend.
Love you, brother. Take care. Guys, wasn't that incredible? I absolutely love Banning. He is such a powerful voice to the body of Christ. And again, do me a favor. Banning offered to do this interview, no charge. He just wanted to get on and he wanted to speak to our community. You know, just so into him. Just go buy the 3 Mile Walk. It's a powerful book. I'm actually listening to it right now on Audible.